Good day to everyone. I am Diana Joseph and I represent the Fourth Way Foundation. We work on a project called Venda out of Cochin in Kerala. And Venda primarily works with children, youth, teens and young adults in keeping them away from addiction and making responsible choices about their life. We've been working in Kerala for the last 6 years and our work has been represented across the country, and we have been representing our youth and our issues of the youth across. We work with the youth and young adults in primarily working on addiction problems, keeping them away from addictions in terms of substances, starting with tobacco, alcohol, gateway substances, to narcotics, hard drugs like narcotics that have long-term effects. What we've done as an approach is to work with communities and engage with communities to enable the youngsters to be in safe environments. And when we say safe, we say substance abuse free environment, SAFE. And we enable communities to take responsibilities of their young ones, their schools, the environments, in making these environments substance free. And our work has been represented at the UN. And the Office of the Drug and Crimes of the UN has acknowledged our work as one of the best practices in the world in dealing with the young adults and the kind of model that we've created. Our work has also been represented at the Vatican, and we are proud that out of this little state in Kerala, we are able to say that we have some best practices that we have and we can share to the world. Today I'm actually given the task to be speaking to all youngsters out in the Northeast, where this is also an equally big problem, and I am thankful for the college initiative of the St. Anthony's College in Shillong and the Department of Value Education that has actually taken it so seriously to address you all during these tough times of COVID and Corona and the lockdown and the shutdown that's making our lives very difficult. And we are glad to be partnering with them, and this little time that I'll spend with you will be important for us as well, to be able to make our environments, our homes, our youngsters, and keep them safe away from addiction and abuses. I'll take the next 15 minutes to sort of take you through the plan of what we have as a subject today, and what I've been given to speak about to you is the topic prevent and don't promote. Because the theme of your conference is me, around and beyond, and for us it's important that we have youngsters who make healthy choices, responsible choices that will keep them away from anything that's harmful to the self, to their surroundings, their home, their family, their immediate community, and keep them as responsible individuals in a social system that they belong to. So we're just happy to be addressing youngsters today through this program. And I just want to sort of take you through what has been a shift in the thinking among the youth in terms of substance and narcotics. Then I will move into what we can do as youngsters to keep ourselves safe, and what are those signals that we need to look out for to go if it's alarming, and if you need help, what we need to look out for so you can reach out for help. So back to the context of abuse and substance and narcotics. A decade ago, we would think or address narcotics in our country and substance abuse as something that is experimental among the youth, or the youth trying to use it as a testing phase to understand what it is. So it is today moved from that point of an experimental or a recreational trial to something that's become very socially acceptable. And that has happened because narcotics and the lifestyle of narcotics has been projected in movies and ads and all of what your youngsters are watching and seeing as a very socially acceptable trait. But as somebody, as a professional who works in it, and somebody who works with youth and young adults, we realize that it is in no way beneficial to the long-term health, wellness, and mental health of youngsters. All of us know that narcotics is a no-no because of its ill effects, but we still go ahead and try it. it's because we primarily don't know that what we have today as addiction is because of something that's been driven by a market. So I'll take you through that. We work with youngsters and we ask them a couple of questions when we start off or when in our trainings as to why they take on to doing drugs or trying drugs or addiction or not, or gateway substances like alcohol and cigarettes and tobacco. And oftentimes the responses that come is because either they are lonely, they are depressed, they have lost their friends, they don't belong to a circle, they have a lot of peer pressure, the pressure for performance of being good, and either they are coming from broken homes. So they have a number of reasons to tell that they have these issues to take on to drugs. And as somebody who works with youngsters, I've realized that the world that you all live in today is very challenging, and for that we really need to commend you all for being these children who are actually being brought up in very tough times. And I realized that over my time with working with youngsters that there has become this very okay lifestyle. You all are called as a generation, as the okay generation, because we're not able to decipher what is right versus wrong and what is black versus white versus when to say yes and no. We are okay with everything. That's the word that comes in. We can't come to terms with saying yes strongly or no and saying that it's right and this is wrong, or that's a black space and this is okay. So we find it very difficult to take a stand, and it's because of the kind of information that's flooding you all. It's a very challenging thing to be a youth today, and we really understand the space and the difficulty of youngsters today. But I really want to take you all to an understanding of why narcotics and drugs and abuse and substances and addiction is a space that you all really, really shouldn't even try or get into, because though as much as we say everything around is culturally acceptable, youth are moving from exploration to hard addiction and dependency. And that's because of what's happening behind the scenes. So you need to actually step back and see what's happening beyond your single choice of having fun in the evening or going out with peers. What you get today, example, if you were to take cannabis or weed, which is easily what you'll understand, marijuana, ganja in local terms, it's not a granddad's weed at all. You could have heard stories of your dads or your granddad saying, okay, it's culturally acceptable, we've been doing this for generations, but you really need to know the kind of weed and the potency of that weed. And something that's called THC, which causes the high, was 6 to 7% in what they used to use, while what you get today in the market is actually chemically distorted, and what you take as a one time or a two take can actually lead you to serious addiction. And we've heard of youngsters craving for this, not being able to continue because they're addicted. It's because the potency in what you get today is 95%, because it's altered, it's genetically altered, it is chemically structured enough to make it give you a high, and it comes in all kinds of choices like chewies and candies and all of that, and we don't realize that stuff like that can actually lead you to serious addictions. So to understand why this is happening, there is also a reason to know that today narcotics or substance is easily available. The accessibility of this is so high that it's flooding the market so much so that one could get it on a phone call, or you could just look around for it and there's somebody who's handing it over to you. There is accessibility to it, it's easily available, and also it's affordable. There's so much of an influx in the market that the rates are very less, and anybody could actually get hold of it, which just shows that it is just not normal to have substances which are harmful to youngsters and teens and adults infiltrate a market so much. So there is there is a market strategy behind actually, or there is a market that's actually dependent on your youth and young choices, which is going to survive, and a lot of money coming out of this. Youngsters need to know all of that, and that's why there is a push in the market is made to look cool. There is vested interest in actually pushing these things, and youngsters today don't see it. They just think it's cool and they think it's the right thing to do. It's also sometimes masquerading or disguised as, simply if you take ganja, they say that marijuana has a lot of medical benefits. It's used for treatment of diseases and pain, and used as a pain killer and all of that. But since it's masquerading in all these faces or these messages, we're not able to get the right from the wrong. We know as much that it is not something that we should get into, but all of us land doing it. It's more the understanding of how to be able to say no in these circumstances that will help. The theme of this conference of yours is me, around and beyond. And as much when we talk about narcotics, addicts, substances, there is an impact of one person's use on his immediate surroundings, and then further to a community. I've heard youngsters say that it is just me in my bedroom. It's my personal choice. I'm not being, I'm not influencing anybody. It's just something that I do in my privacy. But it's no more one of those things. We all know that if you're around somebody who is intoxicated or smoking up, it's not a safe environment. A young girl would find it very difficult to go around with a youngster or a boy who's trialing or experimenting with drugs. We take those risks, but we just know inherently that it's not safe to be around those people. We call it stigma in a lot of sense, but the reality is that it is difficult, because we've seen the ill effects of all of this. As much as we say it is me and myself, there is an impact of it on our own health and wellness. We've heard of overdoses to mental, children who really have issues with their brain not functioning because they are hooking onto it earlier. And this causes a lot of health issues as fact. And it also affects your productivity. You're not able to be productive in a lot of terms. If you're a college-going kid, you're not productive in work or play or games over long term. Initially, it might look exciting and it might give you a high, but over the long term, it does have effect on the health and the wellness of the individual. Then is your immediate surroundings, which is your home, your friends, your family. They all begin to see that it's affecting you in a lot of ways. You become recluse. You're no more that vibrant, happy person, and over time you're becoming angry. You're looking for fixes always, and when you're not able to get it, then we move into the area of crime and theft to feed those highs of ours. So it's not just that it is me and my personal issue. You're immediately affecting your surroundings, your family, and your loved ones. Then there's also an impact on the social system. You're a person who is actually hooking on or getting addicted is also a social burden or a danger in long term. Simple as somebody who is intoxicated and driving. Anybody knows that he is a threat to a pedestrian or somebody who is not at all into the habit. So we are an immediate threat to our surroundings and beyond as well. So this very theme of this conference so much impacts what we're discussing today. And I'm just glad that I'm addressing these kids and youngsters from this area, because we realize that it is an increasing problem and a socially acceptable, kind of a social trait. But during these times, during COVID, during lockdown, during this corona issue, we realize that kids are generally finding it very tough. We've been pushed to a space where we really don't know what to do about this lockdown. We are finding it difficult to stay home. We're forced to be staying indoors. And of late, of the last 2 months, our statistics on these issues are very high. We've heard cases of overdose and death and suicidal tendencies, so much so that now we are really reaching out and telling youngsters to be careful, because one, there is a space that we really are, all of us, trying to cope and find out how to be useful and meaningful and lead lives that really are, adding to our choices. But then there is also a space that we don't know what to do about it. So, in this little time with you, I'd like to sort of dwell on two areas which we are seriously working on. And I'd like to take you through one area, which is the issues around this kind of irresponsible behavior. Uh, Practically because we're trying to cope with the COVID and the corona situations. Youngsters are people who really want to make use of their lives. There's so much energy and vibrance at this age. There is so much that you all can do, and it is all not possible, and you all are homebound. On a normal day, you would go to college, you would attend your classes, you would have your papers to finish, or you meet with friends in the evening. All of that has become a very distant thing right now, and to cope day to day becomes very difficult. So in all of this, we really see that there is a feeling of worthlessness among youngsters today, and a feeling of not being very useful. Coupled with the issue of abuse, we see a lot of sexual abuse happening, physical abuse at home, verbal abuse, and kids are not used to all of that. So these environments are really creating difficult circumstances for us to cope with. We also see that anger management is a big issue, and youngsters today are not able to ventilate, manage their anger, find ways of making it easy for them to cope this. So that's one area that we're really, really struggling with. And the other is high dependency. This is for youngsters who've already hooked on or have a habit of addiction, or who've tried and are not getting their substances for the fix. So there the dependency is so large. And we also see withdrawals happening, high withdrawal symptoms, not being able to manage. So these are the things that we need to look out for. You youngsters or friends who know that your friends have been doing this, and you should know that it's difficult for them right now. So if you've kept away from them just because of this kind of behavior, I think you should now reach out to them and see that there is some meaning in trying to handhold them out of this and being there for them. So these are the things to look out for. If parents are listening to me, you should be very, very watchful about your youngsters trying to be secluding themselves, getting lonelier, shutting down. These are all signs of depression for kids during this time who are not able to cope. Also because they have had a lifestyle which you and I wouldn't believe. The biggest thing that we deal with is the denial of parents. We know that parents, we work with parents of children who are into addiction, and they come out saying, no, his friends might do it, but my child wouldn't. So the denial doesn't get us anywhere. We need, schools don't accept, okay, we know it's happening outside the gate, but not inside the school. But schools need to accept that this is a problem. And we as friends need to accept that our friends have problems. It's just that it's a very tough world. It's not to blame our kids. They're living in a very tough time in terms of everything around is pushing this to them, and the choices they're making is because there is some kind of a pressure to live up to. So knowing all of that, I think we should be very patient with our peers, our friends, and people whom we know have these issues. The other side of, as grim as I sound with all of these issues, I also want to take you to a side where we really want to sort of offer you some kind of a tip or tips to help cope this during this time. There are responsive actions we can take, and there are things that we as youngsters can do. Not only people who have addictions as a problem, and I'm talking about narcotics here, but we're talking about pornography, and we're talking about food addictions. We have various kinds of addictions that happen because I think generally as human beings we're looking for some kind of an affirmation in life. We're looking at somebody to come out and say, oh, you are good, you are that, you're lovely, you're special, and we're not finding it. And we might find these escape routes as ways for us to cope and sort of make it meaningful. But trust me, as youngsters, I think as responsive actions towards our life, there are a couple of things that we can do. One is to make a day plan. It's so difficult to wake up to nothing, isn't it? So I think as youngsters, you have to sort of decide to wake up to something meaningful. And for that, what helps is to actually work on a day plan. Get up and have something very rigorous in the morning, like a workout, or go for a walk around the house, or do some yoga or meditation, something that will kickstart your day with a lot of input into the self and a meaning for the day. And also block your day into certain parts where you have an activity, you have rest, where you have companionship, where there is something that you're entertaining yourself with. So break it up meaningfully. So at the end of the day, you know that a day has gone by and it's had some bearing on you positively. The second would be to find some healthy friendships. You're not able to go to college right now. You can't meet your friends even if you want to. So there you have to make do with what is available. And what I'm hearing of late are the crimes and the problems that's increasing because children are online and on the internet and chatting and getting into chat rooms. It's something that you need to be cautious about because we are like youngsters. We've had cases where children come back and they're so depressed and ready to take their lives because somebody whom they have been emotionally dependent on because they're chatting for a bit now has turned out to be a nobody. And this is happening. Every third case is something like this. So you as youngsters need to regulate your time online and make your online time also meaningful and purposeful and responsible. So what we suggest is to cut down, in fact, your time online. We're talking about from 11 hours to 1 hour. It's not easy, but I think it's a possibility, and a fruitful engagement of 1 hour can keep you going for the extra 11 hours that you would have been online. So that's something that you can work on as finding healthy friendships. The other side is the emotional dependence on friends. We must have had people whom we've been visiting or being close to, and that is not there right now. So whom to depend on, whom to call, whom to get to, and these are questions that will actually bother you right now or you've been going through, and this emotional dependence is something that nobody could easily fill. So we need to find spaces within ourselves to understand how we can cope it, and for everybody it's beautiful and different is how we've come to understand. So one of those things that we actually talk about is to pick up a skill. One thing about kids from your part of the country is that all of you are so blessed with music. You could just take up a guitar and strum and it'll be great music for us. So I think it's wonderful to learn an instrument or learn to sing or do something that is more creative and beautiful and inherently something that's coming out of your cultural background or something that will nourish you in terms of your social system. So pick up a skill is something that we say to fill those emotional gaps and dependencies that you've had. We also find all of this that I have said useful for all children, not only children with any issues, but generally youngsters who are struggling with this whole COVID and lockdown. Now, I'm going to focus my next 2-3 points on youngsters who really have an addiction problem, who have been hooked on, and youngsters who really don't know how to cope with the non-availability of all of this. And I think this is one of those beautiful times where you can actually make meaning out of why you exist or why your addiction could have gone that far. So what we right now seek or request is, one, the person with the problem needs to reach out. It's one of the most healthy things that a youngster would come out and say, I need help right now. Because most of our turnovers, most of our changes happen when somebody really inwardly wants to change. And if you're going through withdrawal, if you're going through tough time, if you're not finding support, I think this is the time to now reach out to your college, this department especially that's working on your value systems. Reach out to them. If you have counselors in your college, just call them and tell that you really, really need help and support. Because I think at this time all of us are looking to be helpful and engage in meaningful relationships that will encourage all of us to sustain and outlive this whole thing. So youngsters who are having serious problems with addiction need to reach out, and colleges or people who are providing support need to professionally handle this. They need to take them to real people who can professionally support them out of this process. The other thing that we realize is for people who are struggling with addiction, there is some kind of a solace in a spiritual discipline in life. And when we say spiritual discipline, it's more or less the time that you would spend with yourself, oneself, to understand who you are, what's your purpose here, what's your worth, that you're meaningful, that you've been sent here to do something in specific, and there is a journey that is unique to you, and you're important, your choices are important, and what you do also has a bearing on the social community that you are existing in. So the spiritual journey sort of, we've seen over time, help serious addictions to come through. The very fact that they believe that there is somebody above who's actually taking care of them, who is actually interested in the life they live, has actually, we've seen turnarounds and serious turnarounds. So a spiritual anchoring is something that we seriously encourage. And if you have mentors, if you have wonderful friends who can root you in this journey, it will help. It will seriously help with having some kind of a spiritual discipline in life. We're also looking at something called mindfulness. Mindfulness among youngsters is something that we have not been taught in our daily life, but it comes easy. Mindfulness is something that you do willfully, happily, in the moment, feel it, and you know that there is meaning, and it's beautiful to live that moment, not worrying about the future or the past or a relationship or your career. You're not in the present when you do all that. But being mindful is very much to do about being in the present and being yourself. So these are exercises that you can actually try. And now you'll ask me how to do it. How to do it is simple. If you have a granddad at home, you have a grandparent, go spend some time with them. Do their hair, cut their nails, sing a song, bake a cake. I don't know what is that you do in your cultural context, but do something that's adding value to them, and in the process making you realize that there is meaning in all of this. There's meaning in relationships, there's meaning in kindness, there's meaning in being available for people. Relationships matter. So this is something that you can practice. These are few points that I've tried to enlist for all of you who are listening to me today. And if all of you have, I don't know how many of you have been able to sit through with me till here, I really think if you've spent this time listening to me, that I've been able to help you in some way. Above all of this, I want to remind you that there is this system in your college that is keenly caring for you youngsters. And it's a blessing to be part of college systems and education systems that care for their youth. And I suppose if you really need, they will make available any kind of support that you require. So with these few words, I'm just happy to be addressing you all this evening. And I'm hoping that we will see vibrant young people cope through this difficult times. And we will have stories after lockdown which really has changed oneself, the immediate life and family around you, and a community beyond you. We are that. We call purposefully for doing something that is meaningful and adding value to your time out here. So thank you so much for patiently listening to me, and thank you for taking what I've said with a little bit of love. Thank you so much, and God bless.